Good evening, everyone. I am Chris, and I'm here today to talk about Dune. More specifically, Dune Part 1 and Part 2. Because Dune Part 2 came out a couple of weeks ago, and I've only just had time to watch the damn film. I've been so busy with work, I've had, no free time at all. I used to go to the cinema at least once a week. Like, at a bare minimum, I'd be at the cinema once a week. Sometimes, even multiple days, like 2 or 3 times a week, depending on my schedule. But, with my new jobs now and everything, it's just really difficult to find the time to get to the cinema because there's just so much stuff going on each week. And I absolutely wanted to get to the cinema to see Dune 2. I didn't want to wait until, this hit Blu-ray and things like that, because watching a film like this on the small screen, you're just never going to get that impact from the sound and, the absolute visual experience that was the first Dune film by Denis Villeneuve. So I knew that I had to get to the cinema to see this thing, and Good Friday today in the UK, and I took the day and I went along and I watched Dune Part 2 at I think it was a 12:40 showing I went to see this morning. But I got up super early. I think I woke up at about I say super early comparatively on a day off, but 8 o'clock. I woke up at 8 a.m. this morning and I was like, you know what, I think I need to catch up with the first Dune film again, so Dune Part 1. Because I only watched it the once when it came out. When did it come out? Was it back in 2021? Jesus Christ, that's flown. That's 3 years. Christ Almighty. I'd only watched Dune Part 1 the one time when it came back out in 2021, and I could remember most of it, in all honesty. I could remember most of it. I should say as well, right from the off, I've never actually read the novel by Frank Herbert, so I know some broad strokes of certain plot elements that they've changed and that are slightly different to the book. Most of my reference comes from the 1984 Dune film, which I believe I watched in preparation for Dune Part 1, because I knew nothing about Dune, full stop, at all, when Part 1 came out. So I thought, I'll watch the original just so I can compare it, and I'll be throughout this review, I'm just kind of going off the cuff right now, so as I always do, I haven't got anything written down or planned, but I assume there's going to be some points in the review where I'm going to be comparing, contrasting things that I prefer in the 80s version, probably quite controversially, actually, because I think a lot of people... I don't think people are meant to like that film. Everyone says oh, this film was absolute trash, and I actually really like it. I love the 1984 film. Thought it was very, very what's the word I'm looking for? In my old age, I keep forgetting words. This isn't good. But just the limited time they had, the limited budget and everything like that, and the fact that they had to condense a story that is this immense, and they had to condense it down into a 2-hour movie. I thought it was a Herculean task, and I thought they pulled it off relatively well. But anyway, now, fast forward X amount of years later, we have Denis Villeneuve's two-parter. What's interesting about this one is you think a film like this, and if you look back at The Lord of the Rings, for example, when Peter Jackson was making his trilogy, they were filming all three back-to-back. And it's not unheard of. That's happened with a bunch of films. I believe that Back to the Future Part 2 and Part 3 were shot back-to-back as well. Whole bunch of other films have done it before as well, and you think with Warner Brothers sinking this kind of money into it and calling it specifically Part 1, that Part 2 would immediately be greenlit. They'd be filming both parts together as one cohesive whole. That wasn't the case. Warner Brothers were really hesitant about this. They wanted to see how this would go over with audiences, whether they would like it or not, before they even greenlit a Part 2. And I remember there was never any doubt in my mind. I knew that a Part 2 would happen. Because could you imagine, they just released Part 1 and then never did a Part 2? That would be insane. So, I think it made a modest budget. Not a modest budget. I think it made an alright amount of money. Just looking at the original, so Dune Part 1, it was done on a budget of 165 mil. Probably double that to get the marketing. So you're looking at, about 400. Apparently it made 406 mil at the box office. Now, I think around that time, that was kind of post-COVID, wasn't it? Or was around that time. But also a big thing was that they released that film at the same time that it was on HBO Max. So a lot of people probably just watched it there. Obviously, they're not paying for the same amount that you would in movie theatres to see that film. So the numbers are a little bit askew there. But it did well enough to warrant a sequel, and here we are, we get Dune Part 2. So I thought it would be good to watch both today, just so I can grasp the full scope of the story in almost one sitting. I think Dune Part One finished this morning at maybe like 10:30 or 11 o'clock kind of time, and then I had like an hour and 40 to get myself ready and have a bit of a break before seeing the next one. But it was really good going back to Dune Part 1, actually. Now, I'm not a massive lover of the first Dune film. I think it's fine. It's a film that I would, now that I've watched the whole thing, Part 1 and Part 2, and this kind of goes for Part 2 as well, I don't think I'd rush back and watch these films immediately at any other point. I've watched them. I'm glad I've watched them. Can tick that box and move on. There's not really as much emotional impact with me on this. I mean, I've seen people hailing this as this generation's Lord of the Rings. You know, there was Star Wars and then there was Lord of the Rings. In terms of a pop culture phenomenon, I've seen people say that, you know, this generation's, you know, 2020s is Dune. And I really don't see that. There was a lot of people at the movie theaters today. It was almost fully booked, actually, which I was really surprised about, although it technically is a day off, so I assume a lot of people had the same idea as me and got themselves to the movie theatre. But yeah, I don't know. I think, and to be honest, it could be down to the nature of the story that is cold and distant. It's not as humorous. Not that I need it to be like a laugh a minute kind of thing, but there's not really much levity in there, and it's quite a cold and dispassionate story in a way, by its nature. That's just what the story happens to be, and the characters. I never really get emotionally invested in the circumstances and the greater narrative of what's happening, and I never really feel the stakes, so I'm not emotionally invested by the climax. And I'm not emotionally connected to the characters. If a character dies, I'm not, you know, like if I watch Lord of the Rings, you know, every time Boromir, spoiler alert, Boromir dies, or even like Gandalf the Grey, you know, you get a little bit misty. It still hits you. Like those films, even still, have all those moments that impact you, and I never really have that with Dune. But then again, I'm never really bored with what I'm watching. Both Part 1 and Part 2 kept me, you know, kept me riveted. I wasn't checking the time. I was I say I was invested with what was going on. I just said I wasn't. But like, it held my attention. I didn't, because it's pushing 3 hours. Both of these parts are pushing 3 hours. I think it's like 240 or 250 or something like that. And it didn't feel agonizingly long. I think they were paced relatively well. Now, what I will say is I've seen some reviews saying certain things they've left out of the novel, and that's just something that's going to happen with an adaptation. Things are going to be left out. Things are going to be slightly changed here and there for the sake of adaptation. But I think there are certain things, specifically with Chani's character, played by Zendaya, that they've completely changed. And I mean, as I say, I've never read the book, and I've never read the sequel book either, Dune Messiah, which they do set up for towards the end of Part 2. I think it's going to have huge ramifications moving into that, because they have fundamentally completely changed their characterization, and I'm worried now it's going to stray into a fanfiction-y kind of tale rather than a straight adaptation of the book, which is usually what I prefer. But there we go. So anyway, going back to Part 1, like which part do I prefer? It's a really tough question. I think overall I preferred Part 2, just because I felt there was more stuff going on with it. Part 1 in some aspects did feel a little bit dragged out here and there. I was still, you know, watching, didn't check the time or anything, but it's always like that classic case of Part 1 and Part 2, in that Part 1 is usually like the long talky one with lots of long ponderous scenes, and then Part 2 is just your all-out action film. And I don't even think Dune Part 2 was all out action. There's a lot more action in it than Part 1, but this will kind of go with one of my criticisms, actually, in that I think that they could have gone more. I think they could have done more with the action. But I think the thing that I favoured mostly over Part 2 is seeing that change in Paul's character, played by Timothée Chalamet, in that they are setting Paul up to be this messiah. And I was chuckling to myself at some points in the film because it was reminding me of Monty Python, like, I am the Messiah, I am the Messiah. Now fuck off. Where was it? Where should we fuck off to, sir? But yeah, just seeing that, and I think watching part one in the morning, going into part two, really helped with that as well, because I had the complete picture of Paul's character arc from his humble beginnings to where he eventually ends up, and I think that was handled really well. I'm assuming the book goes into a lot more detail. It's probably paced out more. There's probably bigger spans of time in the book that have maybe been condensed for the film. But I thought it was handled really well, and I thought he played it very well, in that Paul is an anti-hero. Very different from the 1984 film. The ending of the 1984 film kind of sets Paul up like he's going to lead Arrakis to victory and to a better future, and he's a hero, and he's come to challenge the evil emperor, and he's going to make a difference in the world. And apparently, that's what I always thought he was. He's the chosen one. No, Paul is very, very different in the book, and his ascendancy to emperor results in a jihad, apparently, that kills over 60 billion people, I think. So that's going to be the next one, Dune Messiah, where lots of people die in a holy war. But I like the parallels to, religion, to fanaticism, to propaganda, the cult of personality, and loads of other themes like that I thought were wonderfully handled, very relevant in our world. That concept of faith and people who choose to believe in that, vehemently, that believe in that, and are prepared to go to any lengths they can. There's a lot of political intrigue in there as well, which I always appreciate when it's done well. And you've got the Bene Gesserit. Apparently they're doing a HBO Max series on that, and I'm kind of concerned about that now, because I think they're going to go insane with it and do all these spin-offs just because they've got a somewhat lucrative franchise on their hand. And apparently, I think it's called Dune Prophecy, and it's going to be about the origin of the Bene Gesserit. But I like that it's this like gaggle of witches, really, coven of witches, not gaggle, coven of witches that are pulling the strings of everything. It's very similar to Game of Thrones in that respect, in that, you've got the king, seated on the throne, and in the minds of the people you think, right, the king's got the power, but no, there's a lot of other people at work, there's a lot of other factions at work. You've got the Master of Whisperers, and you've got who's ever paying the King's Guard has control. Game of Thrones. If you've watched it, if you've read it, you know what I'm talking about. At least up until like season 4, and then the rest of it was shite. But it's that same kind of effect in this one, which I really appreciate. And that you've got the Emperor, but the Bene Gesserit are controlling everything throughout time, generationally. They're pulling the strings behind everything. They are the ultimate puppet masters, and they've got plans within plans. And they're trying to create a Messiah, ultimately. They're trying to create that entity that the commoners, I guess, the lowly will follow and give them something to believe in, whilst they're securing, X amount of generations down the line. And Rebecca Ferguson's character, so Paul's mother, gets pulled into this, very much so, and becomes I'm kind of going between part 1 and part 2 now. As I say, like, this review is just kind of reviewing both halves of Dune as a whole. She becomes what's it called? It's the Reverend Mother, I think it is. Yeah, the Reverend Mother. And I really like Rebecca Ferguson as well. I think she's a tremendous actress. I think she was absolutely wasted in Mission Impossible 7. Which is something I'll never forgive that film for. But she's great here. And it's, she's pregnant, and that's maybe setting up stuff that happens in the sequel as well. I'm not too sure about that whole pregnancy thing, though, because, again, in the 1984 film, the David Lynch one, she gives birth within that film. And the daughter grows to about, like, the age of, a little bit past a toddler, I'd say. Like, she's talking, but then again, she is, like, super powered. So I'm not actually sure how old the daughter is in that first Dune film. But in this one, she's still in utero, like she doesn't give birth in this film. So again, probably setting all this stuff up for the future to come. But yeah, no, I thought she was great and kind of terrifying as well, just to see how all these characters change, Jessica and Paul, and you're rooting for them in part one, and by the time you get to the end of part two, you're legitimately concerned about what they have become or what they will become. Now, Chani's character, I mentioned this, Zendaya. I've seen a few films of Zendaya, and she was all right in this. Oh, she did one with oh god, what's the guy's name from Tenet? Let me find it. Someone David Washington, isn't it? Yeah, John David Washington. She did a film with him, I believe, and I thought she was, she acted relatively well in that. But everything I've seen her in, she's just always so boring to me. She's always kind of flat and one note. It's almost like she plays exactly the same character in everything she's in, like the same personality, the same line delivery. You could pluck MJ out of the Marvel Cinematic Universe with No Way Home, Far From Home, blah, 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 and just move her into this, and she's exactly the same character. And I thought she's probably the weakest one, especially when you get to Dune Part 2. I think you've got all these seasoned actors in there. You've got Javier Bardem, who they actually kind of make him more of a comic relief character, somewhat in Dune Part 2. Like, as I mentioned, the comedy isn't overt, but there are a few lines here and there in his personality where I guess you're meant to infer that he's more of a comedic character. And he's kind of like a surrogate father to Paul in Part 2 at least. But yeah, Zendaya, just when she's sort of shoulder to shoulder with all these veteran actors, Rebecca Ferguson I've mentioned, Javier Bardem, and then offshooting off that, you got Christopher Walken, you've got Stellan Skarsgård, Josh Brolin, and all these other characters, and she just falls really flat for me. I don't really buy the chemistry between her and Timothée Chalamet. Like the love scenes, the flirtation scenes, like everything just feels very dispassionate. As I said, like it doesn't. I don't feel that love connection between the two of them, and you really should, because the ending should be kind of tragic. What happens with that whole relationship? So I guess I'm going to be straying into spoilers here and there. I don't know if I've given anything major away so far, Dune Part 2, but yeah, just be warned going forward then I might dip into spoilers here and there. So I thought she was probably the weakest aspect of the film. And more so for the fact that after doing some reading, they've just completely changed her character. The reasoning was that Denis Villeneuve remarked that he felt that Chani's character, Zendaya's character, kind of fades into the shadows. She kind of falls into Paul's shadow in the book and disappears, and she doesn't really have as much agency. And he wanted to give her a bigger part, basically. And I don't know if that's just the kind of clout that Zendaya carries. If you're going to cast her in a film and she's second billed in your film, then you best make sure there's a part for Zendaya. And if she just kind of dies away into the background of the film, then maybe that's not as good for business, and then people are going to be complaining, oh, there's no strong-minded women in this film, blah, 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 blah. Which will take me on to one of my criticisms for Dune Part 1 in just a second. So I don't know if that influenced his thought process. As far as I'm aware, and again, I haven't read the book, so if someone watches this review and you've read the book, do let me know and correct me. I probably will go like either listen to the audio books of them, or I might try and go back. I actually did try and listen to the audiobook of Dune Part 1. Dune before Part 1 came out. And I found it very heavy going. It does not hold your hand. When you go into that book, it throws you straight in. It's throwing terms at you like Muad'Dib. This is Princess Irulan from the year something, Bene Gesserit. And I'm like, what? Slow down. What is all this stuff? So, but now I've seen the film and now I know the rough outline of the plot. I think jumping into the books is going to just help me know what these terms are and who these characters are. But as far as I know, I think Chani just kind of is devoted to Paul's character and will follow him no matter what. And she says that throughout the film, but there's loads of moments in Dune Part 2 where she doesn't believe in the prophecy. She doesn't believe in Paul. She openly mocks him in front of the group and speaks against him. And then by the end of the film, she's bombing off to go on her own side quest, to get her own solo film or spin-off film or something. So as far as I'm aware, and I've seen the David Lynch alternate ending, or the extended ending to the original film, the 1984 one, and once Paul's basically victorious at the end of the film, he says to the Emperor that I'm going to marry your daughter, Princess Irulan, because he's now Muad'Dib, he is the Messiah, and he can't be hooking up with a random, like, lowly Fremen. He needs to marry someone who's highborn, who's got a good bloodline to secure his reign and his legacy. So he says, right, I'm going to take Princess Irulan. Princess Irulan has no input in this. She's just got to do it, as was the custom in the olden days. So, but then there's a really nice moment in that George Lynch film, and again, I don't know if this was an addition to that film. I don't know if this betrays the book or whatnot. But he then goes back up to Chani's character, and he says, "The princess will have no love from me, no glance of desire." No sweet word mentioned to her, nothing. Like, she's just in my namesake. She's just going to be my wife. This is my promise to you. I will love you. You're the one I desire. You're the one I'll be with. But she's the one I'm going home to at night, kind of thing. And it's a really sweet moment. And then Lady Jessica comes over and speaks to Chani, because Lady Jessica herself was a concubine to Paul Atreides' father. And he even says, like, oh, I should have married you in the book. But she says, think on it, Chani, like, the history books, you know, we may be concubines, we may be sort of like the bit on the side, but ultimately the history books will call us wives. And it's a really nice moment between Chani and Lady Jessica. Again, that could have been a pure addition to the movie, but I really liked that moment. And you don't get that in this film. Paul throughout the film is saying, you know, I'm with you, I love you, you're the only woman I want to be with. And then right at the end, he just goes up to the princess and says, like, I'm going to take your daughter's hand in marriage. He mentions earlier in the film there are certain visions of the future that he can see. And he says, you know, this is what I need to do. But he doesn't even care. He doesn't even look twice at Chani afterwards. And then she storms out, and she's really brokenhearted and angry, and then she rides on a sandworm, and that's the end of the film. And I'm like, oh, that's totally different. And I think that is going to fundamentally change where the story goes. I think they're going to be inventing stuff completely out of whole cloth for the next one. And that concerns me a little bit, if that's the case. I referred to something that I really didn't like with Dune Part 1, and it's not even necessarily that I've got anything against the actress. I thought she played, you know, she acted very well, but the random gender flip of Dr. Kynes' character in Part 1 just seems so pointless to me. And I don't know if it was done to fit a quota, that we need to have more strong female characters in the film. I'm like, well, you have Rebecca Ferguson, who's great, you know, who is a strong female character. You didn't need to gender flip Dr. Kynes. Like, for what? To what end? For what reason? Just to say you've got another female character in the film. You know, gender flipping, changing ethnicities here and there, it just felt very pointless to me. I didn't like that change, because I think Max von Sydow plays Dr. Kynes in the original 1984 film, and I just thought it was a really unnecessary change to it. Let's shift focus to our villains then. So let's move over to the Harkonnens now. One thing that really struck me going back to Dune Part 1 is how little the Harkonnens, or Harkonnens, however you want to pronounce it, Harkonnens in this film, Harkonnens in the original film, how little they were in it. Because I want to see more of them. I really like Stellan Skarsgård as the Baron. I love the makeup on him as well. Like, completely transforms him into that character. And I wanted to see more of their culture. I thought that we got loads of you know, House Atreides stuff in the first film, and we get like lots of the Fremen towards the end. But the Harkonnens were just, oh, we're bad guys, we're evil. And they blow stuff up. But we never really got many scenes with them. When it did cut to them, it was a very brief 30 seconds to 1 minute scene, and then we cut away. And I would have liked a little bit more development there. So going into the second one, I was kind of hoping that we'd get more of a focus on them. And the pacing's a little bit weird with it. We don't get much of the Harkonnens at all until well into like the second act of the film, well into like the midpoint of the film, I want to say. And then we get a whole crap ton of them. Before that point, we just get a few little quick shots of Dave Bautista's character, Rabban, and I was really disappointed with this character because Dave Bautista's trying to get into serious acting. You know, he's been doing Guardians of the Galaxy when he played Drax, and he's just been this very shouty, muscle-bound, tanky kind of character. And I really feel like he wants to break away from that. But all Rabban does in part 2 is just shout angrily at everything. And he, you know, like, bring me House of Training! And he's like, he's killing his own guys, he's shouting, he's stomping his feet, he's pounding his fists. And it's such a boring character. I don't know if that's what the character's like in the book. I really should have read the book before watching these films. I should have done my homework on it, but there's got to be more to him in the book, surely. He's got to be a slightly more nuanced character. I remember he was the tanky guy in the 84 film, but actually it did come out in 84, didn't it? I kept saying the 1984 film, and yeah, it was 19. Yeah, that's cool. So yeah, but I feel like there was more to his character even in that film, in the 1984 film. And they do him dirty in this. Like, a lot of scenes, as I say, is just him shouting commands, and then it'll cut to the rest of the plot. And they tee up this big fight. You know, Josh Brolin's character really wants to get his revenge on Dave Bautista's character following Dune Part 1. And they keep teeing up this fight, and you think, oh, this is going to be like a big showdown. It's going to be a big fight. And it's over in a matter of seconds, like 3 to 5 seconds, the fight's over. And I was like, oh, well, that's that storyline done. You know, that's the end of Rabban's character. The whole ending of this film felt so rushed, so rushed, and I don't know why. You're telling this novel, you've split this novel into 2 movies, each one just shy of 3 hours. You've got plenty of time. Devote that time to really fleshing out the ending. Take your time with the ending. And they don't. It's just, you know, it kind of gears up for a final assault, like a big final attack on the Harkonnens and the Emperor. You're thinking, oh, they're all riding sandworms. This is going to be epic. We're going to see some spectacle. And you do see some spectacle for like a minute or two, like a couple of minutes. And that's it. You don't really see much sandworm action. They even kind of split the company. You know, Paul says, like, with oh god, I'm losing my mind here. Javier Bardem's character, he says, you know, you approach from the west, and Chani, you're going to approach from the east, and I'm going to hit them head on from the north. And these are characters that we've followed for 2 films now, and we want to see them in action. Again, comparing to Lord of the Rings, if you look at that, Battle of Pelennor Fields, everyone gets a hero moment. It don't matter how minimal they are of a character, side character. You know, Gambling and Grimbold get a scene where you see them on the battlefield. Éomer, you know, all of these characters, all these side characters, no matter what, and they all get a time to shine on the battlefield. Because we care. We should care about all these characters, no matter if they're a main character or a side character. And I just feel for, like, the big action ending, there should have been more action. We should have just seen these characters doing what it is they should be doing. So anyway, we get this, like, really brief attack, and then Paul just walks in. There's a quick little bit of a single combat fight, like a trial by combat. That's over in a couple of minutes. And then it's exposition. It's like, right, I'm taking your daughter's hand in marriage, Mr. Emperor guy, and we're starting a holy war now. Okay, bye. And then just the credits hit. It felt like a race to the finish. I'm like, why? I really hope some stuff was left on the cutting room floor. And I don't know if it's pertaining to the ending at least, but I know that there was a character, Thufir Hawat's character. I think that's the name of the character. And the name of the actor eludes me, and that's really bad. I think I'll find it here in just a second. Bear with me. Yeah, Stephen McKinley Henderson filmed a whole bunch of stuff for this, and it was apparently cut. You know, he was in movie 1, and the character just disappears in this one. And if I'm remembering back to the 1984 film again, I believe that Thufir Hawat's character actually sides with the Harkonnens and the Emperor for a time, and feels immense guilt for it. And I think he ends up killing himself over it in devotion to Paul. All of that's cut. Dude's not even in the film. And then the actor Tim Blake Nelson, who's a really, really fun character actor, apparently filmed a whole bunch of scenes as well as an undisclosed character, and all of his scenes got cut as well. So there's going to be a stack of stuff on the cutting room floor with this film. But I think that Denis Villeneuve, similar to Christopher Nolan in this way, he's not really a guy that brings out an extended cut of anything. And I think I don't think I'm confusing this with Christopher Nolan. I think Denis Villeneuve has said that what you see in the cinema is his director's cut. Like, that is final. Which is a shame, because I really want to see these scenes. So I hope if there's deleted scenes on the Blu-ray, you know, that'd be great to see if we eventually get to see these scenes in some capacity or through a director's commentary or whatever it is, and we get a little bit more insight into what some of these cut scenes were. But going back to the Harkonnens, probably one of the best additions to Dune Part 2 is Austin Butler as Feyd-Rautha. Now, I think a thing that the two-part split actually suffers from is not including Feyd-Rautha in Part 1. And I remembered being really confused about that, because Feyd-Rautha is kind of the big bad that Paul goes up against at the end. In many ways, he's kind of the mirror image to Paul. He is one of the possible options for the ascendancy that the Bene Gesserit are kind of backing at this point. They're kind of playing Paul and Feyd-Rautha off each other to see who comes out on top, and then they'll amend their plans according to that. But they're securing bloodlines on both sides. Again, maybe that comes up in Dune Messiah and, you know, the future books, in that you've got these parallel bloodlines, these family trees, both with a claim to the ascendancy, I suppose. And because he's your big bad, and in the 84 film, they set him up right from the off. You know, they introduce his character very early on into it, and he's all throughout the film. Of course, that's only one movie. This is split into two. But I feel like Feyd-Rautha's character and his presence would have been felt so much more had he have been in both halves of the film in some capacity. It's because, you know, we didn't put him in the first film, and now all of a sudden we've got to like cram him into this one and, you know, set him up with these like really elongated scenes. And I just feel like you could have sprinkled that and developed him even more over the two films. But he is this absolutely psychotic sociopath, very brutal, completely transforms himself with the makeup as well, and the voice and everything. He's such a good actor, Austin Butler. And I really love how it was shot as well. I think the whole Harkonnen homeworld stuff was shot with like infrared black and white cameras, and it's this very overexposed, blinding whites and kind of crushed blacks look to it. And it looks amazing. It looks absolutely incredible. It's very visually stark. It's very different from the rest of the film. And it really gave it an identity of its own. The cinematography in this film is second to none. It looks absolutely fantastic all the way through. Every single shot, the costume design, everything. Visually, it's an absolute feast for the eyes. So yeah, if you haven't done so already, I know I'm quite late to this film, do check it out on the big screen, if just for that alone. What else can I talk about in terms of the characters? So I've talked about sort of the slightly disappointing action and the race to the finish. Let's talk the music then. So Hans Zimmer's score. Hans Zimmer's one of my favourite composers ever. Some of the music he's produced is truly outstanding, beautiful, but his more modern soundtracks, like some of his later Nolan ones, sort of from like Dark Knight Rises onwards, I guess, are all very samey to me. You know, from Man of Steel, it's kind of like a lot of electronic sounding stuff, a lot of drums, and just kind of a lot of just really, the music just feels very overblown, I guess. Now Dune won an Oscar for it, best original score. I ain't gonna take that away from him, but to me, watching it again, Dune Part 1, it's and obviously going into Dune Part 2, the music in some scenes just feels so overblown and overstated, and I feel like just backing the music back and just letting subtlety creep in, or even something just a little bit more melodic, when the drums and chanting aren't just fucking like a barrage, like an onslaught to your ears. It almost kind of fades into background noise, and to me the soundtrack for both of these films just feels like the B-sides from the Gladiator soundtrack, and then just like Dark Knight Rises music. That's all it sounds like to me. The chord progressions and the keys that he writes in is very indicative of the Dark Knight. Melody lines from that film you can pick out quite easily. There's a chant in Dune Part 2, and I swear to God, like when they're gearing up for like the final attack and they're all sword knife fighting in the desert, it goes into like Bane's Deshi Deshi Basara Basara Deshi Deshi Basara, but I think they like change the chant to like Feyd-Rautha Rautha Feyd-Rautha Rautha, but it's exactly the same shit. So I'm honestly not a big fan of the soundtracks to either of these films. I don't think any are particularly memorable. I think it just filters into background noise, and then when it doesn't filter into background noise, it just becomes really bombastic and isn't very pleasing to listen to. Now, potentially dated in some respects, maybe in some of the instrumentation here and there, but Toto's soundtrack is absolutely wonderful. Now, that is memorable, that is sweeping, that is majestic and curious and wonderful, and yeah, maybe Toto's soundtrack wouldn't have worked for these newer Dune films, but I guess I just miss Hans Zimmer when he's at his most melodic. You know, a lot of his animated stuff actually is great. Prince of Egypt soundtrack, Lion King soundtrack, hell, even like Kung Fu Panda, which was a collab until I think like Kung Fu Panda 3, his music from that, or even some of his older live action stuff. Gladiator is wonderful. Pirates of the Caribbean at World's End is one of my favourite soundtracks of all time. It's outstanding. But I do feel like it's become very stock now. A lot of his music is just very, very, very samey to me. So the music didn't really do anything for me, or didn't lift any scenes. There was one scene from Dune Part 1 which I was expecting to see in Part 2, because I believe it was a vision to something that happened in Dune Part 2. And when Paul's having one of his trippy spice visions, you see like this big fight, this big knife fight in the desert, and it's all very CGI, and you've got people in these sort of like armored silver mech suits looking thing, and this one guy is like flipping over someone, and he's doing cartwheels, and he's knifing this person, and as he's fighting this person in front of him, he's stabbing someone behind him. And it's all very fluid and CGI and almost unbelievable. And then the visor lifts up. He's dressed like a Power Ranger, basically. And then the visor lifts up, and it's Paul. It's Paul's face. And I thought, oh, that's setting up for what the fight's going to be in Part 2. And you don't get him in that outfit, and you don't see that scene, and none of the armor looks like that. I'm guessing probably when they made Part 1... they didn't have an idea really what Part 2 was going to look like, or the final battle, so they just said, oh well, let's just show a quick scene of people fighting each other and put him in this suit. But attention to detail, like I hoped that they would have just kept the design of that suit and recreated that scene in some way, and they do kind of recreate it in a way. There's a scene where Zendaya is in the desert, and she's kind of fluidly chaining together a bunch of attacks, and then she strikes a pose with the knife in a very similar way to what that flash forward was in the first film. But obviously it's with Zendaya and it ain't with Timothée Chalamet, so I don't know if that scene there with Timothée Chalamet is a further flash forward to something that we'll see in Dune Messiah, or even beyond there, or if it was meant to be the fight from this film, which I'm pretty sure it was. But yeah, that doesn't make any sense now when you've got both halves combined. I think ultimately as an adaptation, it's very good. It's very visual. As I say, it held my attention, and I enjoy this story. I do. Like, there's a lot of complexity to it. There's a lot of intrigue. The one thing that I feel like this is just Villeneuve's direction as well, but maybe it's just the nature of the Dune story. It doesn't hook me in emotionally. Like I don't really care about the outcomes of characters. I don't know why I should root for certain characters. I'm kind of watching people do things for 3 hours. And those things are somewhat interesting. You know, I like the intrigue and seeing how the plot develops. But I don't know. I feel cold when I watch it, in that I'm just sort of passively watching the screen. I don't really care for anyone's plights or troubles or fear. You know, I don't feel fearful for certain characters in the film. Yeah, I never get misty. There's never any tears. There's never any levity in there. I feel like there was a big missed opportunity in this. There's a scene where Javier Bardem's character says that he's going to train Paul to ride the sandworms, which is a big pivotal scene. It's one of the most iconic scenes in the original film, and I assume it's one of the most iconic scenes in the book as well. And I wanted to see a bit of a training montage. I wanted to see Paul fail a couple of times, you know, maybe fall off. Maybe Javier Bardem's character laughs at him, shows him the way of how to do it. And, you know, after a few fumbled attempts, he's like, right, let's go. You ready to do it? And then you get your big scene. Because, yeah, Paul says, like, I want to learn your ways. I want to learn the ways of the Fremen. And we never really see him do that. There's never, like, a montage. We never spend enough time where we see him learning the ropes and becoming accustomed to all of that. And then all of a sudden we just cut to the next scene and he's riding the damn sandworm. And you know, he's perfect at it. And I'm like, no, because part of it is you want to see that character grow to that point. You know, it's like Anakin Skywalker in... you have young Anakin in Phantom Menace... And then all of a sudden we're introduced to Anakin 10 years later in Attack of the Clones, and he's gone through all of his training, but we haven't seen that. We haven't seen him grow into what he will become. And I feel like that's a huge thing. It'd be like if you took the animated Mulan film and you just removed the I'll make a man out of you montage. And he's just like, right, I need to train you all up. And then you cut to later on in the film and Mulan's a great warrior. And she hasn't gone through that I'll make a man out of you montage. And that's where characters are built through struggles. That's what we want to see. And I didn't see much of that in this film. And I feel like there was a missed opportunity of where you break the narrative to do part 1 and part 2. Again, correct me if I'm wrong. I'm going from the 1984 film, which I know isn't the most accurate thing in the world. But I'm pretty sure the book does this as well. There's a moment where Paul meets the Fremen and he stays with the Fremen, and he stays with them for I think it's like 3 years, isn't it? It's like 2 years, 3 years, something like that. That would have been your perfect break to end part 1. So if you cut down on Dune part 1 a little bit and you extend the ending somewhat, so he meets up with the Fremen properly and he gets there and they say, right, we're gonna train you up, and we start to see a bit of a montage, we see him grow. And then maybe you end part 1 where he rides the sandworm and they're all like, oh, Muad'Dib, and they're all, you know, they're all bowing in front of him. And then you cut, you know, credits, that's your part 1. And then part 2 is the 3 years later. And we could see how he's grown even more from what we saw from the previous training montage at the end of the first film, going into the second one, and it would match the book narratively, because we've had, 3 years between movies? Yeah, Dune Part 1 was 2021, we're in 2024 now. Boom, there's your 3 years. So you've kind of told the story in real time, almost, in terms of where that break is. I thought that would have been cool to do that, but they kind of do, I think they do that time jump somewhat in this film, but it's very difficult to know of passing of time. A character is pregnant in the film, though, so that can kind of help show how things are progressing. But again, she doesn't give birth in this film, and I don't know if that's something that she does in the book. For example, I know that Chani gets pregnant with Paul in the book, and has a son called Leto, I think, named after Paul Atreides, his father. That ain't in this film, and I don't think... Was that in the 1984 film? I actually don't remember. But yeah, it seems like they've cut a lot of stuff out. They've moved stuff around. They're definitely setting stuff up for future films. Certainly for Dune Messiah. I don't know about onwards, but We see a flash forward of Paul Atreides' sister once she's an adult. We have Leia Seydoux' character, who's one of the Bene Gesserit, who's continuing the bloodline from the Harkonnens, who sleeps with Feyd-Rautha and becomes pregnant with a daughter, so that could be a potential rival to Paul Atreides' ascendancy. So we've got a whole bunch of stuff. We've got Zendaya bombing off on her own for her own little side quest. We've got Paul launching a holy war, a jihad, on everyone that doesn't agree with his ascendancy and his claim. Let's see. Seaward Man says this review tried to be 5 hours. No. I'm about to round off, dude. I've pretty much said everything I can on both of these films. Do I use Twitter anymore? Honestly, no. It's just kind of finding the time. I still do have a Twitter account, but honestly, I don't use it. I probably should. I should keep it going, but yeah, I barely have time for streaming now as it is, so just juggling social medias and stuff like that. You know where to find me. I'm on here. Just look out for if there's like a live stream coming up and you know what time I'm going live with it. I feel like that's pretty much everything I can say on Dune. So, did I enjoy it today? Yeah. I'm glad I saw it on the big screen. I'm glad I've completed both halves of it now. But as I said, I don't think I'll ever be inclined to watch either of these films again. Maybe before Dune Messiah comes out, I'll have a bit of a refresh, maybe. But I feel like a lot of stuff was skirted over with this film. And they could have fleshed out and developed things a little bit more. The ending felt incredibly rushed. Christopher Walken's character as the Emperor, he's barely in it. He's barely in it. And if I remember correctly as well, they mention in the book that the Emperor is addicted to spice. He's like a cocaine addict with the spice. And the spice has many magical bullshit abilities that can, you know, seemingly just be used for whatever in the plot. And I think it delays aging. I think that's one of its properties as well. You know, it can create visions, it can power interdimensional travel, it can be used as just a substance as far as I know, and it can also delay aging. It's got loads of magical properties. But Christopher Walken's old as shit in this film. And they didn't do that in the 84 film either, because he was really old in that too, the Emperor. How old is Christopher Walken now? Because motherfucker looked old. Yeah, he's 80, bless him. But yeah, he's still got an intensity to him with his voice and how he looks. Yeah, so Christopher Walken's still the GOAT. Seaward Man says, what platform is best? Are you talking about StreamYard, Streamlabs? Are you talking about Twitter, Facebook? What are you talking about when you mention platform? If we're comparing streaming services, well, not streaming services, but streaming devices, I do prefer StreamYard. That's the one that I used back in the day for quite a while, but I was having really bad lag problems with it. And a lot of my reviews were getting lost. Basically, it would cut out what I'm saying halfway through a sentence, and it was just unintelligible. So this is why I moved to Streamlabs right here. I don't like the layout of Streamlabs, and it seems a little bit more limiting in terms of viewer engagement and things that you can do. But if it gets the videos out and you can hear me and you can still chat to me, then it's all good. But yeah, these films just don't hook me emotionally, and I feel like that's what I need with films now. I need to be invested in what's happening, and I don't feel like I am with this. And I don't know if that's a fault of the film itself, or and the direction and the screenplay, or if that is just how Dune is. And maybe Dune isn't as much for me as something, you know, like Lord of the Rings is, or something like that. So yeah. Seaward Man says, do this camera angle more often. Yeah, no, I can. When I'm on my own, like, it's been a while since I've done a review on my own. Honestly, I forgot how to do my intro. I forgot everything. I think the last solo review that I did was Saw 10 back in October of last year, wasn't it, I think? Or was it September? That was the last solo film review that I did. Everything else has been with either JX Editor or with Dale with the Disney stuff. So, yeah. Anyway, I think that'll do it for my review on Dune. There's probably some... Oh, I have a question. For anyone that has read the Dune book. I wrote this down earlier when I was rewatching part 1. So, At the beginning of Dune, they mention that spice is a necessary ingredient for interstellar space travel, and it makes interstellar space travel happen. Like, you have to have spice to do that. So, if you need spice to achieve that, how did they travel space initially to find Arrakis to get the spice from there? Because they would have had to have done interdimensional, interstellar travel without spice in order to get to Arrakis, in order to discover that it has spice, in order to harvest the spice, in order to find out that spice can produce interstellar travel, and then develop the technology from there. You see what I'm saying? Like, you've got to get to Arrakis in the first place. So that's got to be answered. That has to be answered somewhere in the book, because that is a huge plot hole if that is the case. But yeah, like, I remember in the 1984 movie, there's that whole scene where they travel from the Atreides home to Arrakis, and they're doing the interdimensional space travel, and there's like this big fucking glowworm thing. This worm that bends space or creates a black hole or something. Is that in the book? I've heard some really weird shit happens later on down the line in the books. I know that there's like a human character that turns into a sandworm. Some weird shit happens as far as I know. Seawoodman says, what platform is best to communicate by? To communicate by, well, communicating with me on my live streams like this is the best way, or dropping me a comment on one of or doing a community post or something. That's probably the best way to reach me at this point, because I don't use Twitter. I might re-download it and just keep it ticking over, but every time that I say, yeah, I'm gonna start doing Twitter more, I just never find the time. I just really never find the time to do it. So time is precious now. I'm getting older, I'm afraid, and so, but I still do like streaming and talking about movies. Of course I do, and that will never change. But you have to just kind of expect me when you see me now, unfortunately. I'm trying to think. The next film that I have booked in is Phantom Menace 25th anniversary, and that's on May the 4th. But that's a whole month away. But there are some movies coming out that I do want to see. For example, Godzilla and Kong, New Empire. I might go and see that. Sometimes I just like to see giant CGI monsters punch each other in the face. I've heard bad things about it though, and that's not even to say the other films have been good. In the Monsterverse or whatever they're calling it, they've mostly all been pretty terrible. But maybe I can get some mild enjoyment from that. If I do get to that, it'll be sometime next week, so I might do a review on that. Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes is coming out soon, which I completely forgot about. So we got the trailer for that today. That looks amazing, and I do love those Planet of the Apes films, so I'll be going to see that. There'll be a review on that. And I got a trailer for something else as well that I wanted to talk about. That's coming out. Hang on, let me have a look. Oh, there's Feyd-Rautha as well, which looks. I'm not gonna lie, that kind of looks like shit. Feyd-Rautha, the Mad Max Fury Road spin-off film. Let's see what else is coming out. I think there's some other films that I'm forgetting that's coming up soon. So we're gonna be going into April. So April has. Does it have anything? Oh, there's a new Quiet Place film as well. We got a trailer for that, like a prequel showing you day one. I'm like, why do we need to know about this? It's, you know, we know what's happening. We've seen the other two films. But I thought there was another one that caught my attention. Bear with me, guys. Where is it? Okay, we're into May. Yeah, so Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. And there's one other one in that month. So it's Feyd-Rautha, okay, maybe. The Crow, Inside Out 2. Or maybe it's like one in July. Oh, okay, yeah, Beverly Hills Cop 4 in July. Yeah, okay, so yeah, that's a few months down the line anyway. But I'll be doing new movie reviews as and when I can, basically. But for the most part, I'm focusing on the Disney 100 Years of Wonder retrospective with Dale. I'm really loving that. I'm really passionate about Disney and animation in general, and it's a retrospective that I've wanted to do for years. So the fact that we are doing it now, and we're seeing all those list of videos, we're getting through it. We're on to number 22 on Monday. We're getting through it, and yeah, I'm getting a lot of satisfaction with that, going through those. So, and I've discussed other retrospective ideas with Dale as well. Once we're done with Disney, which is still going to be just under a year away, we've been talking about other retrospectives that we'd like to do. So we've got stuff lined up. So I won't say what it is now, because it's, you know, I'll be announcing it way before. But Seaworld Man says Disney reviews are rocking. Glad you're enjoying them, man. Yeah, as I just mentioned, I'm really enjoying doing them as well. So and me and Dale like chat every day as well. We're always talking about Disney and films and comic books and things like that. It's really cool. Oh, I say do at least 2 Disney reviews a week. It's schedules, man. Like, honestly, I get 1 day off a week, which is a Monday. And even getting the film watched for then and researched and getting the stream all set up, that's a tall order to do. Even on I do all that on my day off, you know. So I don't think I can squeeze 2 in, unfortunately, because I have too much other stuff on. I look forward to the Mondays. I think 1 a week works. You know, it was like the James Bond retrospective. There were 25 films with that. We did 1 a week. Yeah. I said Luca is really good. Yeah, that's the Pixar film, wasn't it? I thought that was fine. It was just kind of an average movie for me, but I remember the ending having quite an emotional impact on me at the time. But I've never gone back to rewatch that film, I must admit. Right then, we're coming up to an hour, so I'm going to round off. There's a couple of things I need to... Oh, bath time. Oh my god, Chris, you're alive. Yes, I'm alive. I am here with a new movie review. And I'm just about to finish. Oh, screw it. I'll stick around. I'll wait till it hits an hour. You've got me for 3 minutes. So off you go. No, but thank you for tuning in, man. I always appreciate it. You know, it's always good to get a conversation going with you guys. You're going through 3 body problem. I really enjoyed it, but you... Hang on. Let me have a look. It's really annoying. They've placed the emojis right over the messages. Hang on. You going through 3 body problem. I really enjoyed it, but you can tell it's better as a book. 3 body problem. 3 body problem. Let me see what that is. I've actually never heard of that, man. 3 body problem. Oh, it's on Netflix. A learned educator delivers a lecture shedding light on the 3 body problem in a detailed and easy to understand manner. What is the 3 body problem? Who's in this thing? Oh, you've got Davos from Game of Thrones in it. He's a pretty good actor. Oh, there's a few people from Game of Thrones in this. You've got Samuel Tarly. Benedict Wong's in it. He's cool. No, I haven't heard of this one, actually. Is it any good? I mean, you just said that the book's better. Oh, it's a Netflix show from one of the best sci-fi books ever. That's often the case, isn't it, though? Books are going to be better. That's one thing that I'd like to do, actually, more. I need to get back into my reading, and I keep saying it, and I never do it, so I think audiobooks might be the way forward. I did have an Audible account a long time ago, but I kept deleting it, because it's like £10 a month, and granted, you get a new book on there every single time, but I do a lot of driving now between my work, so I'm kind of always driving between places, so I think it'd be like the best opportunity to get some audiobooks in, because it's amazing how quick you can, you know, that time adds up throughout the week, and you can get through some, you know, serious amount of books in that way. Seaworld Man says, show me your keyboard setup. I can't, the webcam's attached to the screen. It will pivot up and it will pivot down. Suffice it to say, I've got a wireless keyboard and I've got a wireless mouse, which is currently deactivated. These things, these Apple mice, these wireless things, they're fucking awful. Does anyone else have one of these? The amount of times it keeps dropping connection, it just really pisses me off. So I'm going to repeatedly try and click to get the mouse back, otherwise I can't click end stream. And you guys are going to be stuck with me for like God knows how long. Bath Time says it's from a Chinese... Oh, there we go. The mouse is back. It's from a Chinese author, so there's lots of communist analogues, etc. But it's made by them clowns that adapted Game of Thrones. Oh wait, seriously? Oh, that explains the amount of Game of Thrones cast in there then. Oh, you're fucking joking! It's D&D. It fucking is. David Benioff and DB Weiss. Is this the first thing they've done since Game of Thrones? Because the reason they tanked Game of Thrones and wanted to wrap it up quickly was because they were promised a Star Wars trilogy, weren't they? They were going to move on to Star Wars and produce something for that. I don't know what it would have been. I think it was like an Origin of the Jedi kind of thing. And then because they epically fucked up Game of Thrones, they were fired from Star Wars, which is just absolutely hilarious. So, yeah. No, oh, God, now they're sinking the teeth into this. So is this something that's going to be like one series? You said that it's an adaptation of the book. Is it like sci-fi books plural? Okay, yeah, no, they might be sticking around for a bit then. Well, at least okay. Next question then, Bath Time. Have all the books been written for the three body problem? Because the problem is with Game of Thrones, when they had the structure there, they weren't half bad. They were pretty okay. And then when they ran out of books, they started to go massively shit and invent their own things. So if all of the books have been written, they should have a roadmap for all of it, and they should be okay. But I wouldn't trust anything that those guys make now. I really wouldn't. Bathtime says, yeah, but one of D&D did an excellent job on Troy, and the book series is finished. Seems to be following it well from what I've seen. Oh, that's good then. You never know. Maybe they'll be on it with this one. Oh, the keyboard setup got Chicken Run vibes from Luca. I didn't get Chicken Run vibes from Luca. As I say, yeah, I watched it once when it came out. Wasn't that around COVID again, Luca? I'm not sure. I know it was released straight on Disney Plus, wasn't it? Bath Time says, yes, it's been finished. They're foreshadowing lots of stuff. They've done well. Okay, well, that's good. You know, hey, if they redeem themselves, it's going to take a lot of redemption, though. And I'll never... Because could you imagine if Game of Thrones had have stuck the landing and had an absolutely phenomenal last couple of seasons, that would go down in history as one of the best TV shows ever made. And up until season 4, it was. Hell, it was probably the best TV show ever made. Ever. So cinematic, well acted, well written for the most part. The loss of potential from that. I have heard House of the Dragon is phenomenal, and that's coming up to its second season soon. I've been tempted to, because I'm looking for a series to maybe jump into to break up the films a little bit. I've been tempted to maybe get into House of the Dragon to maybe recapture some of those early days of Game of Thrones vibes from like season 1, season 2. The reason that I stayed away from it was because the ending of Game of Thrones just absolutely crippled me, and I'm thinking, well, if this is a prequel to all of that, we know where it leads to. So why should I be invested? Like, why should I care? Because it's going to be terrible. But I have heard it kind of works as a standalone show. Like, if you've watched Game of Thrones, then yeah, you're probably going to be privy to a lot of the names and a lot of the lore and everything like that already. But you can watch House of the Dragon for its own thing. And I think it's set so far back enough that it is going to be removed from all of that other stuff. So, and all of the House of the Dragon stuff has been written, unlike the main, A Song of Ice and Fire series. Bath Time says the lead actress is far too fit to be a scientist, though. It's jarring how attractive she is. That was like a CW kind of thing. I remember when I used to watch Arrow, every single character was attractive. Just everyone. Fucking everyone. It was like, okay, sure. Yeah, Bath Time says Game of Thrones was wicked for 4 years, only lost that kind of global appeal. Yeah, it's amazing how everyone... Well, I'm sure some people like the ending to Game of Thrones, fucking psychopaths, but yeah, it's amazing how that show just died away. And, aside from House of the Dragon, no one really talks about it anymore. Bath Time says House of the Dragon is fine as a standalone. Matt Smith is hilarious in it. Oh yeah, I forgot he was in it. Yeah, no, he is. Well, there's a few other TV shows that are coming up soon. So there's House of the Dragon. I can't promise reviews on that because I would have to catch up with season 1. And I don't know how much time I'm going to have, but I'll be doing Star Wars Acolyte. with JX Editor. I do know that, because we got to make Star Wars pay. The likes to dislikes ratio on that trailer is a joy to see. And Star Wars is a dead IP to me now anyway, so it's just going to be laughing at how incompetent it is or how terrible the writing is, and you know the drill now with Star Wars. Oh, Bathtime says Lost, the TV show. I think people forget how massive that show was worldwide. Dude, Lost. It's on my DVD shelf, but my DVD shelf is double stacked, and they're on the back bit, so I can't get them off. But that was my favourite show for the whole 6 years it was on. Yes, the ending shit the bed, but my god, the journey there was fantastic, and it was a show like that now would be totally different because it'd be on Netflix and all the episodes would be released immediately. But that waiting week to week, speculating, then waiting a year for the next season, and then all the theories. I had the Lost magazine every week or every bi-weekly or whenever it was, looking at forums, talking about it with people, sort of like the water cooler effect. I think a lot of shows lose that now because they are just kind of all dumped straight out there on streaming services. And you lose that connection, you lose that hype, and I think some shows are maybe better suited for binging and other shows are more designed for the weekly thing. But yeah, I kind of missed that. But oh man, Lost was phenomenal. I was with it every single season through all the ridiculous shit from the hatch to the fucking time travel to we need to move the island. Looking back, I should have gone, what the fuck, move the island? This show's jumped the shark. This is ridiculous. Well, I turn a big fucking cog and it makes the island disappear and reappear somewhere else. That's ridiculous. And it is ridiculous looking back at it now. But dude, I was invested. I was so in it. I was like, yeah, sure. We got to move the fucking island. Let's get to it. Come on, let's do it. And then you had time travel shit. And then it got to season 6. And we knew that was going to be the ending. And I thought, this is where it's losing me. Saeed died and then was resurrected from the holy waters, but then turned evil. And then the black smoke monster was revealed to be a dude who had a mom, and the mom threw him into... what, did he kill the mom or something? I can't even remember. And then he got thrown into a well, like a magical well, and then he came out as a black smoke monster. And then... yeah, he can't kill the people. It just got fucking stupid. And then the purgatory shit. This is a place that you all created subconsciously in your mind so that you could all find each other, and we're in a church and it's all religious and shit. It was like a flash sideways, a parallel future in purgatory, and Jack's got a kid now. It was stupid. It was awful, and I hate season 6. But season 6 does have one of the best episodes, which is the Richard Alpert flashback to show his whole origin story, how he's like super like fucking old, and he's like a warden of the island, and he serves Jacob, or whoever is the guardian of the island. Love it. Oh, I'm going on a Lost tangent now. I'm gonna have to do a video on Lost at some point. I'm gonna go back through that series. I've been through it a number of times actually. It was a show that I'd always introduce my friends to, and a lot of my friends would kind of jettison after season 2. I actually think season 2 is my favourite season out of all of them. A lot of my friends kind of gave up on it after season 2, but one of my mates stuck with it, and we watched every single episode, and he's a massive fan. He was a massive fan, bought the box set, watches it loads, so yeah. Bath Time says Lost was incredible. I rewatched it during lockdown and I'm alright with the ending. 2 absolute standout episodes in that show. The time travel one with Desmond. Yes, The Constant. Yeah, that's my favourite, all-time favourite Lost episode. Absolutely wonderful. That bit where he calls Penny, it's all leading to that. Penny is his constant. And the editing and the music, the Michael Giacchino score, that was one of the first scores that I ever heard from Michael Giacchino. That and the PS2 video game, which I think was called Black, which was like a first-person shooter game, which was amazing. And the editing back and forth and the intensity of their connection. They had such good fucking chemistry together in Lost, those two actors. Genuinely believed like they were like spouses in real life. and it's back and forth, and he's like, Penny, you answered, Penny. And she's like, oh my god, Des, I haven't heard from you in so many years, where are you? And he's like, I'm on a boat. And I go back and I'm getting misty-eyed now just thinking about it. I go back and watch that scene so often. It's phenomenal, so well acted and just directed. The editing, the script, the urgency, that love, that connection they have for each other. And then he's losing connection. He's like, I'll find you. And she says, I'll look for you. It's like, oh, that's what TV is made for right there. Yeah, phenomenal episode. Love that one. And which was the other one that you said? Where Locke gets out of the wheelchair. Fuck. Which episode was that? Hang on. John Locke gets out of wheelchair. I remember, is that in season 1 that you're talking about? I remember there's the bit where he wants to go on the walkabout, the Australian outback walkabout, and like the travel agent guy says like you can't do it, and he's like, don't tell me what I can't do. Are you talking about that bit? Yeah. Oh, it's called Lockdown, isn't it? Is it called Lockdown? I'm trying to remember. Yeah, oh, that's a great episode. Oh, there's so many good moments, man. I'm thinking about it now. I need to do... I want to watch Lost again. I'm going to watch Lost again, and I'm going to do a live stream, and it's going to be like 10 hours long of me just talking about every awesome character and awesome moment in Lost, and every shit moment in Lost, but we go with it anyway. Oh, I'm loving this. I'm so glad that I stayed on. I will have to jump off in a minute, though, guys. I saw a post on Reddit yesterday saying, no disrespect to the actor, but you can't be serious that Jacob is Ginger. Yeah, there was so much hype around Jacob, and then you see him, you're like, oh, okay. I don't know what I was expecting, some kind of like Jesus character. Overall, which do you think was the better series overall, Lost or Game of Thrones? Fuck. That is a fantastic question right there, because both, for their time, were considered like the best TV shows ever made. So much impact, so much like water cooler effect with people talking about the show and speculating about it. Granted, with Game of Thrones, you had books though, so you had some kind of idea of where it was going, but the normies had never read the books and they were experiencing it and wondering where it was going to go, and they were surprised by everything. Production value on Game of Thrones was much better. It looked like a movie come to life. Costumes, weapon design. Oh, fuck. But then it had such a drop-off, didn't it? Well, it dropped off with Season 5. Season 5 was terrible and awful. It ramped up a little bit with Season 6, and then it just dropped off a cliff with 7 and 8 with the writing. I think Lost is better, personally. Same amount of seasons as well, interestingly enough, between Lost and Game of Thrones. That's another comparison too. I'm going to give the edge to Lost because Lost kind of didn't lead to anywhere fulfilling, and the ending felt very rushed and slapped together and didn't really make any sense at all. But the emotional beats throughout those 6 seasons, like when Lost hit, it hit. Like, it hit big time. And the character writing and just how well, because you got so many flashbacks, you became, you understood those characters. You really understood their backstory. And I like the stories where their flashbacks filter into something that's happening with them in the present, which makes them think about those moments. Characters crossing paths, relationships that were formed between characters. Oh, Sawyer and Juliet. My God, that moment at the end of Season 5. Charlie and Claire. Just all the couplings in that were done so well. Even like Bernard and Rose were done well. Penny and Desmond, of course. Jin and Son. The character writing was so strong. So yeah, I think I'm going to give the edge to Lost. I think Lost was a better series overall. And I'll always say that. I'll always say that Lost is my favourite TV series. Although I don't go back to it as much as I should. I've gone through it a few times though. I have done. but I think it's just the end just kind of gutted me a little bit. There's things that, you know, there's character beats. For example, in season 1, for anyone who's watched it, you guys know what I'm talking about. In season 1, I think it's like episode 3 or 4, there's an unnamed woman. We haven't seen her before at all. Well, she's not unnamed, actually. She is given a name, but we just haven't seen her. Called Joanna, who's drowning in the water. She got swept out by the current. And Charlie runs and gets Jack, because Jack is the Gary Stu in the series. He's unwavering, he's macho, he's amazing at everything. And he's like, Jack, come and rescue this woman. She's in the water. And he says, I would have tried to help, but I don't swim. Fast forward 2 seasons' time to season 3, where the writers have forgotten about that episode, and Charlie says, oh yeah, I'm one of the strongest swimmers there were. I was like the best in the league in Manchester or something. I could hold my breath for a stupid amount of time. I'm a really strong swimmer. And that's why they send Charlie to fucking swim down to that underwater station, because he's such a good swimmer. I'm like, well, where was that back in season 1 when fucking Joanna was drowning? So there's a bunch of stuff like that doesn't add up when you watch all the series back to back. Stuff like the black smoke monster can't kill the candidates. I don't know why. That's never fucking explained. It's just, if your name is on that ceiling, if you're a potential to be the guardian of the island presided over by Jacob, the black smoke monster can't touch you. He can't kill you. But we see Mr. Echo's name on the ceiling, and because the actor did something dodgy at that point during the show and they had to write him out of the show real quick, the black smoke monster just comes out of nowhere and just fucking nails him and just kills him. And Mr. Echo is one of my favourite characters, and it was so abrupt, and it was so just, okay, Mr. Echo's out of the series. I'm like, yeah, but if he was a candidate, then the black smoke monster wouldn't have killed him. How could the black smoke monster see into everyone's past and see flashes of their past? Like, it was J.J. Abrams' mystery box, which became very evident when we get to the Star Wars sequel trilogy, and now I think everyone's wised up to how he writes. It was still all very brand new, and we got suckered into it by Lost, but I still had a great time with Lost, even though there's a lot of things that don't make sense. Seaworld Man agrees. He says, yep, adore Lost. He was such a plonker lock. How you let someone nick a kid is... Oh, that was heartbreaking, though. And he was just trying to reconnect with his dad. Yeah. Lost analysis and breakdown. Right, this is irrelevant. Nothing to do with Dune. Yeah, this is what I mean. It has nothing to do with Dune. I need to round this off. We've been going on about Lost for 20 minutes. I don't even care. Math Time says, I'm not sure Red Redding was ever as big a twist as them being off the island. Yeah. Love the tantrums, though. I go Lost because you had to consider the ending. GOT, you knew it was shit. Jamie Lannister is basically Sawyer. Nothing Game of Thrones did ever got close to the cultural impact of the numbers. It's true. Bath Time. The thing that really pissed me off was the episode with Jack's tattoo. Yeah, because they kind of made up for it when they killed that new couple with the mad spider. Yeah, season 3 wasn't Lost's finest hour. You had a completely pointless episode on Jack's tattoos, like we give a shit. And then, yeah, it was Nikki and Paolo. What blew my fucking mind was that the actor who played Paolo is the guy who plays Xerxes in 300. You know, like the big, tall, very flamboyant, camp-looking guy who's king of the Persians with a really deep voice, like, come, Leonidas. You know, that got the bald guy with all the fucking jewelry in his face. That's him. It blew my mind when I found that out. Seaward Man says, you going to do more videos with Naomi by chance? Oh my god, dude, that's going back some years. I don't even believe I'm still in contact now, so I guess probably not. Bath Time says, I always remember how crap the reveal of the polar bear. Do you remember, Walt? That was bollocks in the end. Oh, yeah, you had to watch the little 10-minute epilogue that was on the DVD, which tied up some of the stuff with Walt, just completely thrown together in at the end of it. But yeah, as I say, Lost, not perfect, but my god, it was a fun ride, and I'll never forget it. Definitely throughout my formative years, you know, it was 2004 to 2010. Shit, Lost is 20 years. When did it air? Actually, oh my god, it's the 20th anniversary, isn't it, this year? shit, man. Hang on. Lost TV series. There we go. We've got our excuse. 20th anniversary. We'll do it on the day that the first episode aired, if it hasn't already gone out. September 22nd, 2004. There you go. That's a good shout, actually. Let me find out when that is. September 22nd. I mean, would you guys be down for that? Like, I'd totally be up for that. For doing, like... I don't know how we do it. If we just do a video, like a single video on the day to mark the 20th anniversary, just talking about all of Lost, and it's like an open discussion like we're having now, where we're talking about some of our favourite scenes. We could make it a top 10 video of our top 10 favourite moments from Lost. Or we could... I don't know if we could, like, watch an episode a week, because that would take a number of weeks. You know, that would take years to go through all the episodes. Let me know what you guys want from a Lost video. So September 22nd is going to be on... That's going to be on a Sunday. That's going to be perfect. It's going to be like, yeah, weekend. Was that Hurley working in the factory or something? Yeah, that's right. It's 20 years old, I think. Lost. Wow, yeah, we old. Yeah, Seaworld Man's right. Yeah, we old. Yeah, we are. I was really surprised that during lockdown a new audience found Sopranos but not Lost. I found Friends. I'd never watched Friends before. I was aware of Friends. I knew of the characters, but I'd never watched it before. So that's what I watched during lockdown. Sopranos is definitely on my list. I'm ashamed that I haven't watched that yet. Yeah, obviously, but everyone needs to come prepared to talk about the ending. Why was Lost so good and what went wrong? Oh, that could be a good video idea. Yeah, so just that's the title of the video, like, why was Lost so good and what went wrong? There we go. Carl's in there. I was waiting for Carl. How you doing, man? We all love Lost. This is amazing. Why haven't we... We've talked about it a little bit before, haven't we? Like, in comments before, like, it's cropped up sometimes now and then. But, yeah, no, look at the joy. Look at the joy I'm filled with now talking about Lost. So we've absolutely got to do this, guys. So September 22nd, it's a Sunday this year, 20th anniversary of Lost. Why aren't they making a big deal of this? Like, I think I still like the Lost pages, actually, on Facebook. Like, the Lost forums, like, you know, Lost whatever. And no one's mentioned this. It's only just occurred to me. So how are we going to do it, then? How are we going to do it? Are we going to just do that video? Like, it's just going to be called Why Was Lost So Good and What Went Wrong? I feel like with a video like that, though, it needs to be a video essay kind of video, which I am absolutely not capable of. How those YouTubers do it, they must have... They do that for their livelihood, right? They can write scripts, really quick editing and things like that. I ain't going to have the manpower, I ain't going to have the time to do that. So it's just going to have to be a live stream like this where I'm just talking to camera, which is what I prefer doing anyway, and interacting with you guys. So what are we going to do? Are we just going to do... To mark the 20th anniversary of Lost, we're going to do our top 20 moments. We could do that. We could do, you know, 20th anniversary top 20. We could just do a top 10. We could just do I'm going to hit record, you know, I'm going to hit go live, and we're just going to talk Lost. We're going to talk favourite characters, favourite moments, favourite whatever, things that we didn't like, and it's just an open discussion. What do you guys want to see? Let me know. I'll wait for an answer, and then I'm gonna bow out, I think, because I've got some other stuff to do tonight. Just get some lads on that like Lost and talk about why it was amazing, and then get into the ending and the mysteries. Yeah, that could be cool. So one of my mates, the one who I mentioned, who I got him into it, he's not much of a talker. He's very much an introvert, and I don't think he'd be comfortable on camera. There's someone I used to go to university with who I actually haven't reached out to in a long time, and I got her into Lost. She'd definitely be up for talking about it, I think, but I'd have to drop her a message first, and, you know, because I haven't connected with her in, like, years, absolutely years and years and years. But I could ask around, definitely. Not to sound, like, really snobby, but, like, we need someone who knows Lost, who's watched, you know, all 6 seasons, knows it like the back of their hand, and probably has that connection with it as well, I think. So yeah, I'll ask around, but yeah, let's pencil that in. I've got 6 months 6 months to get it done. It'll soon come around, though. Anyway, in the meantime, it's just been like 45 minutes of Dune and then an extra 45 minutes of talking about Lost and other stuff. But this is great. I really appreciate you guys jumping on and having this conversation. Yeah, this is great. When it's like this and we got a live stream going and we've got a chat going, it's wonderful. Depends if you think the ending was bad. Well, that's true. I'm not. I was going to give away my story there for what happened when I first watched the ending to Lost, which I may have done on an earlier stream. I don't remember, but I'm going to save it. I'm going to save it for 6 months' time. There's going to be anecdotes. I'm going to try and find out my Lost magazines that I used to get back in the day. I'm going to try and find them all. It's going to be great. Make sure you get someone on that likes the ending, though. Yeah, no, it'd be good to have that back and forth. Definitely, it'd be good to have a bit of a discourse with that. 100%. I'm somewhat in the middle with it. I think tending more towards not liking it, but sort of central on it. But there will be rants, there will be tears, there will be wonderful things, I'm sure. But anyway, 6 months' time. Until that time, there's a few other films coming out of the cinema. Not an exhaustive amount. Most have moved to 2025. But there'll be some big ones. The big one is going to be on the weekend of May the 4th and May the 5th. Phantom Menace, 25th anniversary. I'm going to try and get someone on for that. Maybe Dale, but I'm going to try and see if I can find anyone else as well, just to talk Star Wars, basically, just to talk Phantom Menace, because I was talking with Dale a little bit about it the other day, and there are so many anecdotes to find. I might try and find some of the old merch that I had back in the day, because what's going to be really interesting for me is that I will be seeing Phantom Menace 25 years later at the same cinema. At exactly the same cinema that I went to see it when I was 6 years old, and that really hit me. So yeah, no, that would be good to talk about. So, but then there's Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, as I mentioned. There's Furiosa. There's some other stuff cropping up, and then obviously every Monday I'll be with Dale, and we're going to continue our Disney retrospective. Some big titles coming up soon. We'll soon be into a couple of months away from the Disney Renaissance, actually, which is going to be wonderful to talk about. So. Plenty of stuff coming up, maybe not as regular as I used to be, granted, but, adult life, jobs, work, schedules, it happens, but I'm still here. I'm still here, and I'm still, I've still got a way to chat to you guys, and that's what I'm here for. That's what I've always been here for. GG Chris, always enjoy some Lost chat. Remember to pop on 3 Body Problem. I think you'll find it interesting. Yeah, if I get time, man, I will throw it on. I'll give it a go, and hopefully get hooked into a new series. Have a good night, everyone. Enjoy your Friday and your weekend, and I'll catch you guys soon.